Here in part 2, we go into the structure of financial decision making, and it's powerful. Thanks for listening. Back in the early days, whenever Nelson, and God bless him, he wouldn't answer a question directly initially, right? I mean, it's not like he avoided answering questions. He did not. He would ask you a question to make you think and to encourage you to get to your own answer, because it was typically pretty clear most of the time.
Yeah.
But that would make people angry. And then, what do you mean I'm already spending everything that I possibly can spend? Are you?
Yeah. But my underlying point there was that is should be the primary source of premium. Is your free cash flow, period. And are there exceptions? Is there a business sale, or is there a big property sale, or maybe you saved up a bunch of cash, want to get it out of the banks into the insurance companies? Sure, yeah, okay. That's year one, okay? So after that, for the other decades of your life, we have this question of what's the source of the premium? And the answer is your ongoing cash flow. And every deviation from that is an excuse to justify a higher premium number early on. It's virtually always the case. And maybe it's appropriate. Maybe that's the entry point. David liked to talk in the past, meet the client where they're at. And I'm like, oh, you're going to have to convince me of that one.
Hey, I had a talk titled that several years ago. I'll stand by that.
I know, but it's like... there's a point where you say yes, but at some point it's like you had to revise his spending pattern. The primary source of the premium is ongoing cash flow. And after that, it's a case-by-case basis, right? Is there a justification for a unusual year one premium, that is financially legitimate and makes sense, and is it actually advisable, not just possible, but also advisable? Sure. There's exceptions to every rule. And I know there's people sitting there, I get the emails before, well, I've done this, I paid a big old year one premium and everything worked out fine for me. And I'm like, okay, great. Good for you. Are there exceptions? Sure. But how much of the risk do you want to bet? And by the way, person who sends those emails, 15 years from the last major financial crisis, it's like, yeah, okay. When you carefully curate your historical perspective, things look fine. Like, oh, you decided to start taking distributions or retire prior to a major financial crisis. It's been a long time since the last one. Things look well for you. My dental hygienist the other day, it's like, oh yeah, we bought this property and whatever it was, 13 acres, back in 2009, and we just sold it. And so that turned out to be a good investment. She's talking about, because she knows I'm in finance, right? So let's use the word investment to relate. And, I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad that worked out for you.
You should have started talking dental hygiene.
I should have I would have closed my mouth entirely had she not been in there with the tool. But, it's like you don't get to look back at things that coincidentally happened to work out and imply that was a consequence of your deliberate action. Right? That's not how it works. You don't get to say, oh, it seemed to have worked out. Therefore, the mentality that I took, the reasons that I took, the actions I took were those two things are necessarily related. That is not the case.
Cause and effect right there, brother.
And the nature of monetary policy makes for like this fertile soil for this kind of impression to come about, right? Like somebody gets rich because they sell just before the .com crash, right? They cash out when the time was right, not because they're like a thorough student of economics and they understand what changes in the money supply mean for the overall economy.
Like that would make a difference.
Right. But because, they happen to get a nice private equity offer, so they sold and now they're wealthy. And so people who have no money want to interview them. I get it. And that looks like, so like this facade of brilliance, when really it was just coincident timing with what the Fed governors decided to do. Like you can't extrapolate from that some remarkable genius. So you can't then, on top of that, turn around and use that as the backdrop to then go advise to clients in a a professional capacity. Like, oh, it worked for them, so it's going to work for you. No, that is not the case. And how much to do otherwise is to conceal the risk, right? You're obfuscating the risk. You're making things look better intellectually, logically, structurally than they really are. And so to say that an individual in that context is going to make an informed decision is, in the best case, a half truth and maybe just an outright lie. Right? You can't,
my God, you're being generous.
I'm doing my best here. I mean, to think that I, as the agent or the advisor, in a year, 18 months, 2 months, or 2 years, or 20 years, after the next crisis, to think that I want to be that guy, that gets the emails or the phone calls, lapsed the policy, had to move, whatever the consequent circumstances are, to think that I could be the person who benefited from what turned out to be a catastrophe for the individual, that to me would be so catastrophic. Like, I don't know how I could sleep at night knowing that, even now when something doesn't go wrong, and a policy lapses, or we get the premium past due notices and something's not going right. I mean, my first inclination is, what did I do wrong? Like, open the case file back up, review the notes. Was the premium right? Was the structure appropriate? Like, was this decision made on the right, or not decision, like, was my approach to the conversation legitimate based on the circumstances?
What did you leave out? Did you leave anything out? Did you cover everything that could have been covered? That's real.
It's so real. And to be the guy who, now assuming that all of this, assuming it's an apples to apples comparison here, to be the guy who purposefully sold a policy under the context of this massive maximum loan, maximum leverage type scenario on the eve of a recession, to have even 1%, I mean, it doesn't have to happen to a lot of people. For it to go wrong once would make me ill. I couldn't, I don't know how people do it. And I don't think, because I really do believe, the best of intentions and all of this, I don't think they're coming from it from the same approach. And so my response to this guy, to bring it back to this conversation, was, you can speculate however you want. At the end of the day, this is a philosophical difference. It's just a philosophical difference. The answer to that whole proposal is no. I couldn't. My comment to him was, I couldn't run away from that fast enough. But you do what you want. And I'm not, and then of course you always have this second thing. It's like, well, am I just saying things to try to get business? And then I look back on what was actually said and talk about it with you. And it's like, no, that was.
Are you saying things to justify, your position prior to? So
right. Like trying to attract his business, get him to leave that relationship.
No. It's like, if you have your philosophical foundational beliefs and understandings, then you have a new set of information presented to you, and then are you just holding to your predetermined, practiced philosophies to support?
Right. Am I being dogmatic despite the facts?
There you go.
It's a legitimate, and I have to, because I know I'm an overthinker, super critical, and whatever. Maybe I talk nicely and that attracts some people, and I don't ever want that to be the reason someone says yes. And so I do go back through the whole thought process that leads up to those very few cases that I have where something did go wrong. And without exception, it's always no. I would go back and I'd make the same decision again.
Man, I'm proud of you. I know the work you do, so good job. Keep going. The cherry picking of a timeline that has to occur most of the time in these well-crafted presentations. And some of these presenters, some of these younger people, not even younger, some of these, digital creators, isn't that what everybody is online now?
Yeah.
They're well-spoken and they put together, but it's always such a short clip and it's always such a narrow point, Mm-hmm. I see it a lot with IULs, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to do IUL, the rate of return. And I'm thinking, oh, God bless you. I don't even think and I don't know. I'm not disparaging. I'm going to get to a point that they might have been in grade school in 2008.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Yeah.
And so their only experience in the financial world, especially in the life insurance industry, is whomever they're working with, the IMO, the sales organization. Maybe it's a full-blown legitimate general agency who has, a big background of solid, reputable, high-end type of business and service. That's a no, because you can listen to what's coming out of their mouth. So it's not that, right? But it's a sales, and it's a sales machine. Let me, like, multi-level marketing. And which I think with multi-level marketing just really copied the life insurance industry, in my opinion. But that's topic for another episode. These young people, their only experience is whatever training they've received on whatever particular product that they're in love with. It's always about the rate of return, typically index universal life currently, and the timeline is always cherry picked. It's always the best 10 years of the market, whatever. You have to, it's just another characteristic, another form of the quote unquote manipulation. And that's in my opinion. We're manipulating the numbers on the page to make sure that you're comfortable enough saying yes, even though you can't defend yourself and justify, not that you should, have to defend yourself from financial people, but when it comes to, I'm going to collateralize my home with a HELOC, and then I'm going to buy a life insurance policy, which I have no understanding or no comprehension of the structure, but the presentation was so good, I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to leverage that. I mean, I don't know. My hat is off to these skilled presenters in the third-party software that they use, and I get it. I'm using black and white PowerPoints. I've done tons of modules in the past, and and I can put together a module. I can talk about math and numbers and all of that. But if I created the best illustration that out manipulates the math of a universal life illustration and get to the point where they say yes, I get paid. I know there's going to be a train wreck in the future. How in the hell can I feel good about that?
Yeah,
you can't.
You can't.
And so. If it isn't right, I'd rather walk away. I'm okay.
Yeah.
No business is better than bad business, I'm telling you. Okay.
And I think a lot of these, in addition to all the good intentions and all that, just like you've told me in the past, they end up counting money they hadn't earned yet.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, there's all that
or whatever.
Yeah, there's all that equity built up in that house. That could imply X amount of premium, which would mean Y amount of commission, and I counted it before I earned it.
Oh no! See, here's where I think that would apply. Maybe you had, and I know you did, have a legitimate conversation with the individual, and you're not trying to beat him up intellectually or anything like that. Your why is a legitimate question, probably one of the best ones you can ask yourself or the agent you're with or whomever. Why? Just explain to me why, please.
Yeah,
and it's a fair question, right? Now, after that conversation, and I don't know how it ended, but you can feel the same. But it ended, and however it ended, he received an opposing philosophy and an opposing view, right? And now he goes away, and this is big in the insurance or the financial services industry. You gotta berate the other advisor, the other agent sufficiently enough to get the consumer to get mad and walk away, so you can get paid. Blah blah blah. So he might have. That conversation may or may not have encouraged him to continue thinking and maybe make a better decision, right? And if it did, then the other agent, whomever he was working with, I'll guarantee had already counted the money and already spent it.
Yeah.
Right. But it wasn't issued and delivered and all of that.
Right.
So look at you counting something that you didn't have, and you can't ever lose anything that you've never had. You cannot lose something that you don't have. Yeah. So, just thanks for letting me expand on that. Look,
no, yeah, and that definitely goes on in the background, and
it's ignorance, in my opinion. That ignorance is ignorance, right? Ignorance is not a bad thing; it can be corrected, right? So he was ignorant, in my opinion, of the probabilities of a policy and a solution being put together and built that way. The further out you go, the probability of a train wreck gets greater and greater. The further you go, the bigger the wreck is going to be. Yeah. And then the individual, and I don't know the individual that whomever put that together for him, but surely they had to be operating out of ignorance.
You do know the individual.
I do. Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. Do I know them, or just know of them? Do I like play golf with them? I'm kidding. I don't
met them.
Oh, great. I can't wait.
More than once.
So, and I'm just saying that if you're ignorant, you can correct that, right? You can learn, right? And speaking of learning, Becoming Your Own Banker, right, by R. Nelson Nash. Second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. Third book that I particularly like and encourage you to read is How Privatized Banking Really Works. Bob Murphy and Carlos Lara. And then Nelson's 6.5-hour DVD series lecture on his book. It's really his presentation, live presentation, whittled down to 6.5 hours, available on DVD that you could purchase, and also available through digital, access. That's the foundation. All these ClickFunnels, all of these side programs, these, special programs, the learning series, this series or that series. Perfect. The foundational learning, first principles, first materials, Becoming Your Own Banker, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, How Privatized Banking Really Works, and Nelson's 6.5-hour DVD series, lecture series, live, him delivering that live. That's the foundation. Spend your time and money there first, and then go and enjoy all the rest of it. It will help you, number one, spot the noise, hear the truth, spot the less than honest or less than clear, hyperbole that's out there. That's my encouragement.
And just nowhere in any of that will you find Nelson saying to go get a big old line of credit against your primary residence where your young family sleeps at night. Nowhere. So I told the guy, I'm like, look, I would classify this whole approach as creative insurance design, and you can do what you want, but it's not IBC.
Nope.
Just because you purchase whole life insurance doesn't mean you're doing IBC.
But it's got a cash value. I can borrow against it.
Yeah. And I know that too, I'm sure there's this, in our little Facebook hater group that's out there, I'm sure this is out there, that, we're just saying it to, shark business away or whatever, or it's competition. Like,
that group that said there's nothing sales and they're all nothing but salesmen in there, and they're poaching everybody that comes in there under the guise of, we just want to learn.
It's and it's a fine line to walk. Like I do, I'll see a financial profile come in with a new client, we go through the advisory process, and I kind of have an idea of what I think the right premium would be if I were that person. But it's always, I never tell them. And there's never an instruction, you should do this, you should do that. It's, here's how it works, you tell me what you want to do type thing. And then we talk through it. But, sometimes there are people who are so excited about doing IBC and they want to be, they're type A, they want to be front of the line, they're first, find the unique way or whatever, so how do I make it better? How do I make it better? I want to do the X, Y, and Z, borrow from here, borrow from there to pay a higher premium. And it's like, then I got to talk them down. It's like, no, that's a bad idea.
Here's why.
And is that, so I just say that to say that this is not about just getting the sale. My God, if this was about getting the sale and cashing a commission check, I'd be selling pharmaceuticals or something. There's more money to be made.
You have to look for that. You can sell pharmaceuticals. I love it when clients, and I have this call regularly. I had it like Monday, this or previous Monday. Lovely gentleman. He came to the event, and relatively new client, and he's just a great guy. And he said, James, I want to run this by you. Now, you may talk me off the ledge if you think I need to be talked off the ledge. Or he's like, you're probably going to talk me off the ledge however it went. And sure enough, but you're excited when you see the truth. Oh my gosh, it's liberating, life-changing. Literally, this can change lives, not only your life, but future lives, your people, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, generations. And, to hear that from a financial person, it's like, yeah, they all say that. No, I mean it. And I can back it up, and I can lay down all the proof, right? But when you see the truth, when you hear the truth, when you experience the truth, you just want to share it with people that you love and care about. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to get uber excited, right?
Which is good, but you don't have to make it better than it is. There's no reason to go through all the extra shenanigans to manufacture artificially high early cash value. And that's what all of these freaking approaches are. Manufacture early liquidity. In my talk, and I'm going to do a longer lecture series, like a follow-up to the mechanics series.
Great, Ryan. Great. Why don't you just write a book?
Oh, I'm doing that too. Of course, it takes longer and longer. Everything takes longer than you think it will.
Costs more too.
Costs more, yeah. I got to remodel my kitchen. I'm like bracing for impact there. But during the talk, I showed these. I think you can depict things in certain ways, and the way you depict them has a real effect on whether it's absorbed. And so
you had some pretty graphs.
I had some pretty graphs. They're pretty.
Had
pretty.
a little color in there.
Yeah. And if you just take,
you could hear low in the crowd. Ooh.
Yeah, there's a little good gas. So I'm like, got him. If you take illustrated cash value, especially on a well-designed policy where you can pay a bunch of premium for a long time with the right structure, you take the cash value figures, you put that on a line graph, and you compare that to the cost basis, or if you take the annual cash value increase, compare that to the premium. I mean, it's a beautiful graph. And when you look at it from starting age 40, 50, whatever, all the way out to age 121, or stop it at 100, stop it wherever you want. I don't really care. And then you observe that where all this conversation.
I love this. I love this.
Yeah.
I love this. It's probably going to drag me into creating graphs in the future. I love this.
Yeah.
So
this whole
So look, he has an exponential curve on the big screen, right? And to the left is the starting point, of course, and the further out you go, the greater that exponential curve is, and the more pronounced it is. It's beautiful because he put colors on it, and then he put some numbers in there, right? And so that was a 12-foot screen.
Mm-hmm. 16 by 12, I think.
No, I think it was 7 by 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. 12-foot screen. So this graph is going from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen, right? And there are actually two screens in the room. All right. And then he focuses, all the conversation. Look at the relationship of the numbers, the annual premium, the annual increase in cash value, and the face amount over someone's lifetime. Not cherry picking a timeline, right? Not cherry picking a timeline. The whole lifetime of the individual. What a concept. Life insurance should mirror your life. What? Mm-hmm. Your whole life or just part? Okay. To the very left, all the focus, he narrowed it down to where all the focus is on this artificial, I call it artificial liquidity, in the first 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, 7 years. And when you put it in perspective, you're focusing on a speck in a timeline of your life. In getting hung up. And that's quite literally where one starts swallowing camels and straining at gnats. Yeah. But so that was a very effective and impressionable visual, greater than just a wall of numbers. Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And when you do it that way and you see it, here's where 98% of all the marketing is focused on this little bitty sliver over here. Yeah. Never mind any of all this other massive surplus cash value growth over and above never mind any of that. Yeah. Never mind the long term. The whole marketing infrastructure online is almost universally a complete violation of the rule to think long range.
No question.
It's complete and utter fixation.
And afraid to pay a premium. You're afraid to pay. Don't jump over. You're afraid to pay a premium.
Yeah. And it speaks to this broader point, because I try to get at why does this pervade so much, this emphasis.
It's a human nature.
Now. Yeah. And I really think maybe this sounds harsh. I don't care. But it's finding a way to justify a large premium in spite of insufficient free cash flow.
What?
It's compensating.
I just got to get it started right now.
Yeah. Compensating for insufficient free cash flow. Income's not high enough. And if the income is high enough, maybe the expenses are too high.
That reminds me of the country boy driving that great big old 4-wheel drive that he has to have a ladder to step up in. What's he compensating for?
Exactly. And that's what it is. It's compensating for insufficient free cash flow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going to tap other assets.
And it's also compensating for, like, I've been lazy personally. I know, not you. I'm speaking of me. I've made some bad decisions. I have a lack of discipline, and I have had this practice of laziness, not being disciplined for some time. And by gosh, I got to make up for it right now.
Got to make up for it right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't build this world that way. You know, this doesn't happen overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. I mean, the creator of the universe took 7 days to finish it all out. You know,
let's have a conversation of that. 7 days. Overnight. How long is a day? Right. Okay.
Yeah. But it wasn't done.
What does time mean to him anyway? He's breaking it down for us. Okay. Sorry.
It wasn't done overnight, and it's not, the problems aren't going to get fixed overnight. And it's not to blame people. It's not to make people feel bad. I point this out whenever somebody says to me, I wish I would have knew about this earlier. Mm-hmm. You know, look at you. People always do that, right? Because most of the people I talk to are older than me. And so I wish I would have figured this out when I was your age. And I always stress to them, I'm catching up too. My parents should have been doing this. Whole life ain't new. You know, this should have been going on a long time. We're all catching up. There's never enough capital. Your income is always limited relative to the infinite span of human desire. There's never enough. We're plagued by scarcity. That is the human condition. There's no fixing it. There's only the possibility of improvement. And you either start, and that's what was one of the points in showing some of those graphs was, okay, I start at 50 or I start at 30 or I don't care. There's a curve. There's a cash value growth curve that could exist. And maybe it slopes up ever so marginally faster than another one. Or maybe it's a little more leveled out.
What, you mean, can I buy it on my wife? She's younger. Can I buy it on my children? They're so much younger.
Yeah, there's always a reason to, discount one's own insurability. Always want to look somewhere else, right? Because we never want to look inward. This is brutal. We're going to lose viewers over this.
You are. I'm going to gain viewers.
We always, and I just speaking broadly about, because I've constantly come back to this idea of the relationship between capital and opportunity, and people ask, how should I best use my policy? And it's like, why do you expect someone else to have that answer? Right? The best answer to that question doesn't exist yet. Okay, by definition, right? The best answer there's value in liquidity. If opportunity doesn't exist, right? Opportunity is what we call our implicit judgment of certain sets of circumstances that appear to us to be amenable to our intervention, such that we can produce a better outcome, right? We mentally collapse that into this thing we call opportunity. And one of the elements that affects that implicit subconscious judgment is our own knowledge of how much money we can get to, right? It's our own capital. So I think it's a tautology. It's just necessarily true. That idea that capital attracts opportunity. The more money you have, the broader the set of circumstances, everything else equal, that will appear opportune. I think that's like what Nietzsche would have called like a synthetic a priori truth. Like it's just necessarily the case. If you're walking around with more money, the set of circumstances you can get involved in is broader, period. So it's necessarily the case. Like, so if that is the case, and I think it is, in that scenario, if I'm constantly rate chasing, I'm constantly searching without, I'm constantly going to the other, I'm looking around the corner, looking for the magic, right? Where else? And I'm 50 years old, or I'm 60, or I'm 30, or whatever, and all these years have gone by and I haven't found it. Maybe the case is that it's in the one place you haven't looked. Like in the mirror, right? Maybe it's in there.
It is brutal.
All of these, well, somebody's got to say this stuff because the internet is flooded with all this, do that. And then commentary upon commentary upon commentary about all these other proposals. It's like, people ask me like, well, what should I do with my policies? I mean, maybe you should start journaling daily. Right? Maybe you should start taking an hour or 2 or 3 a day and like start a program of serious ongoing introspection. Maybe there's parts of your character and what you're doing that need to be different. That was certainly the case with me, right? Entering into academia, spending 10 years or however long it was, running into walls over and over again. Where's the opportunity? Where's the best program? What if I go to this side of the country? What do I go over here? How could I maneuver how could I find the right academic career path out there, right? Out, not internal, not like, what presuppositions do I have that I need to reconsider, and life insurance? I used to say when I first got in, if you had told me 5 years ago, I'd be selling life insurance, I'd have thought you're talking to a wall. I mean, you need medication. I mean, something's wrong.
Yeah.
But that was because I had these own implicit, unspoken, inarticulate presuppositions that I had not discovered. Right. And so this idea that I could have come upon, the right answer from without by asking somebody else, hey, what should I do? It's this idea that making money or investing or anything financial is just propositional. All I need to do is receive the right knowledge. You just need to tell me the right idea and I'll accept the right idea and then I'll do that and it'll be better. It's like, wow, if only things were that convenient. If only it was that simple. No. I think the right answer is the difficult one. It's a very Jungian type thing. You got to go in the shadow. You got to go where you least want to go to find what you most need. It's also not this just hard work, bleeding hands, got to suffer and grind all the time thing either. I think there's a place for hard work, don't get me wrong, right? But it's not just beat yourself to a pulp. I could be digging holes and filling them back up outside and working a lot harder than I am now type thing. But that isn't necessarily the path either. So I'm not saying that you just have
job?
Yeah, right. I'm not saying you have to beat your head against the wall either, but I'm saying that it's too convenient to expect the right financial answer to just come from without, that it's going to be just handed to you. I'm saying capital is a necessary prerequisite to the best opportunities out there, and what that opportunity will look like for you is only going to come from you. That's really it. And it's good to have people on your team or whatever, people you talk things through with, to sift through things that might have a glimmer of interest or a glimmer of potential to you. Yes, you want to talk those things through, and that's all great. But at the end of the day, the best thing for you is going to come from you. And I had people immediately after the talk, 3, 4, 5, however many people came up to me after and say, I'm reconsidering what I was planning on doing because of what you just said. I mean, my main, not the only takeaway, but one of my points at the end was I would not want to be uber leveraged going into this time next year at all.
This time next year, you're talking about October of next year?
Fall of next year.
Okay.
Yeah, upon yield curve reversion. Look, why time it to the day? It's okay to be well capitalized now. You can be prepared in advance. And I explain why. And because look, and that is the exact opposite of this. How do I go take a loan? What do I go do with it now? How to be crafty and use debt and all this. That implies a high degree of capitalization. It implies having a substantial policy loan balance. It implies collateralizing a lot of whatever the property is we're talking about. And I think the right answer is the opposite. I think the position I would want to be, that I am in, is very well capitalized, highly uncollateralized, right? Cash available, capital available. And that's the opposite of, what am I going to go do?
My heart goes out to the newly initiated, right? I've discovered this, and like you said, I've said many times, we all play catch up. Yeah, I wish I'd have learned this sooner. And, is it legal? Yes. Why haven't I heard of it? If it's so good, and why haven't I heard of it before? Why isn't everybody doing it? And all of these things, there's really 4 or 5 things that you hear every time. I know when I first heard of it, 14 years in the life insurance business. I'm about 41 years old, I believe. Maybe 42. Nelson was 72 or 3, somewhere around there. I read his book, and I'm like, one night, and I'm angry. I'm literally angry. I mean, I'm angry. I've been looking for the truth in the financial world for 14 years. Really a little bit longer than that, but and I'm writing life insurance, and I had no idea. So I'm legitimately angry. So I go and listen to the man after reading his book, and I've continued to read it since. And I'm so appreciative that, people will come and listen to me talk. Right. I'm appreciative that I get asked to return to places and they ask me to speak, because in preparing for whatever I'm going to talk about, which will be infinite banking, and money and philosophy, I spend a lot of time in Nelson's work. Right. So I'm very appreciative of that. Okay. So here, newly initiated, angry, and I go listen to him talk. I mean, I knew it was good. Right. Most people, when it's either caught or taught, right. Once we catch it, it's like, oh my gosh, I know this is good, but I can't put my finger on exactly why it's so good. I can't make those connections. Right. So you keep hearing him, you keep listening, you keep going, you keep learning, you keep reading. And I was there. I suffered from FOMO my whole life. I'm the youngest of 4 children. Of course I suffer from FOMO, right? But I recognize that later in my life, and I've come to grips with it, and I'm okay with it. And I suffer from it less, I think, but I still suffer from it. Okay. And here I'm in the financial world, right? And I'm trying to do the right thing for myself, my family, my clients, of course, for, ultimately, if you don't help them, you should quit and go home, period. Okay. So I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm learning. I'm a student, of my faith. I'm a student of my profession. I'm a student of history. And because of Nelson, I really became a student of Austrian Economics that I had no idea of what that even meant prior to. After being in the financial world 14 years, and I was no exposure to the Austrian Economic, business cycle theory, Austrian Economics. Okay. So I'm paying attention, and I'm not walking around sleepwalking. Right. I mean, I am paying attention. I am trying, making an effort. I hear it. I can't get my finger on it. The one thing, so I'm still chasing, right? The one thing that I consistently did, and I heard Nelson, I believed him. I was trying to make the connections, trying to find the magic, right? Is I kept paying premium. Larger and larger premium. Of course, my clients, they start out much larger most of the time than I did.
Yeah, same, yeah.
First mistake, we all start too small. It's okay. We all start too late. It's okay. But I kept paying the premium, dragging myself, dragging my wife, I wasn't dragging my wife until the 4th or 5th year. Y'all have all heard this, and y'all met her, and yes, I married up, and thank God, he did something for me that I couldn't do for myself. At one time, literally the 4th or 5th policy, angry, and the girl can punch. I'm not kidding. The girl can hit. Where are we going to get the premium? Like, I don't know. Sitting outside the hospice facility that my dad was in, and he died in April, and I'm sitting there writing a check that could choke a mule to the IRS. Choke a mule. I've listened to Nelson. I tried to be his water boy. I'm like, that was in 2007. So I've been his water boy for 3 or 4 years, paying premium. And here I'm writing a check to Uncle Guido that could literally choke a mule. It's like, I've said it, I have no better comparison. It's like a man shaving every day, looking at himself in the mirror every day, and then all of a sudden, wow, there's a nose. Here I'm writing a check, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this should have been a premium payment first. And I was still searching for the magic, right? I just knew intuitively, because 3 or 4 policies in, 3 or 4. It was actually more than 3 or 4. That was 3 or 4 years. So there was more than 3 or 4 policies.
Yeah. So that's not where he started. He didn't run his income tax through a policy, and that's how he justified the premium. Understand that. This came after, already up and running.
It was still going to be a struggle, right? Because then I knew if I paid the premium first, then borrowed against the cash value from the life insurance company, paying an interest, I'm going to have to make a loan repayment, and the premium is going to be due next year too. Mm-hmm. Right? Still didn't know. I just knew that's what I'm going to do. And I did it, and haven't stopped since. And so what's changed? It's me, the opportunity. Ryan, you put it so well. It's fundamentally true that opportunities are attracted to capital. That is bass backwards, and Wall Street has it. I've said it many times. I'm going to say it again. It's worth repeating. Wall Street creates a product, an opportunity, right, to attract your capital. Think about that. Yeah. It's completely opposite. I'm going to accumulate capital, and the opportunity is going to be attracted to the capital. And the way Ryan eloquently conveys that is, now I have access to capital. Oh my gosh, my vision becomes clear. Everything walking down the street is not an opportunity. I don't care how well you present that, Mr. Real Estate Syndicated Deal Promoter. And God bless you. I'm just saying that my vision, my determination of an opportunity not only improves dramatically because the capital in a life insurance company, because that's where it goes, not in your policy, right? It's at the hands of, in the accounts of the life insurance company, right? They're doing a pretty dang good job. You tell me what other industry has been around for 100 years and whatever variation. I don't care if they mutualized, demutualized a holding company. I don't care if they bought and sold 25 times. I'm talking about a mutual company or mutual company structure. How many other industries that are not government contractors been in business 100 years and profitable?
Yeah.
I hear crickets, right? So my whole point is it's going to do just fine. So now if I've got a bunch of capital there and I'm trying to get as much capital piled up into life insurance policies as I possibly can, because as I said a couple of weeks ago, last week, we all have a limited opportunity. The day's going to come whenever you will not have the opportunity to buy life insurance, the opportunity to pay a premium. Yeah, think about that. I know you're young, can't see past 30 years. I get it, but it's true. Okay. If it's doing well right there, and something comes along and says, "Oh, James, you can get 3 or 8 or 9%, or this or that, or it's an appreciating cash flowing asset." It's like, yeah, does it come with renters and I got to pay taxes and I got to do the repairs and what? Yeah, I'm not interested. What? All of the renters in that multi-family, multi-door property are going to conspire against me? I don't know. I mean, I hear horror stories. I'm just saying, it does pretty dang well right here. So it must do a lot better for me to engage my capital.
Yeah.
Right.
This just came to me. I love this podcast because it helps me develop these ideas. But, in Austrian Economics, we say that profit is the return paid to the entrepreneur. Right? It's the reward for astute judgment. An entrepreneur organizes. Activity. Accepts the burden of risk, organizes factors of production in order to produce something in the future that people want, and those people demonstrate it by being willing to pay for it. And then the difference between revenue and all the various wages, including wages ostensibly to one's own self for various technical knowledge, right? Because that's a hireable skill. You don't get a profit for that. You get a wage for that. The profit is the difference between all those expenses and what was earned. That's the profit. And it's a return to judgment. It's a return to judgment. Look, if you are a YouTube viewer and all the judgment has been done for you, you are not an entrepreneur. You are consuming. It's just another form of consumption. And you're paying for a product or a service that you're receiving, ostensibly that's of value, but maybe it is, maybe it's not. I'll find out after the fact. But if a marketing firm or an education company that's really a marketing firm calling themselves an education company has done the judgment for you, they're the ones that earn the profit. You don't become an entrepreneur by falling into some sort of quote unquote investment revenue, right? If you collapse and people get on me for being snarky about this, but I make fun of the idea that in the conventional finance world, Wall Street has collapsed all the financial analysis into this two-dimensional thing where all you have to do, quote unquote investor, is observe the difference in magnitude between two numbers. Right? Ooh, 10 is bigger than 5. Okay, that's not judgment. That's an observation. And there's no return to observations. Right? There's only a return to proper judgment, to good judgment, to judgment that results in the production or the provision of a product or service in the future that people are willing to pay for, where there's revenue in excess of costs. And so and then if you take it a step further and say that investing is really just a type of entrepreneurial action, right? We're taking a decision in the context of under uncertainty, right? We're forfeiting control over capital, giving it to somebody else on the expectation that we'll receive more later at a future date, either on a repeat basis or one time, right? So rather either ongoing cash flow or a one-time cash flow, rental income, and or a capital gain, let's say. It's a type of entrepreneurial activity. If that decision to invest is executed under circumstances where the judgment has been outsourced, you're just another consumer, right? You're really just part of somebody else's product.
It continues to hurt.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's what it is,
right? And once you see once you see things that way, I don't know how you can unsee it. And you hear this sometimes on like the guru stuff online. Sometimes these uber wealthy people will talk about like, their experience vetting deals or whatever. And sometimes you'll hear this, that the right answer is normally no, right? So it's the opposite of rate chasing, of searching for the opportunity that someone's going to give me, right? And it's usually no. And I've made this point too in the past, that positive economic value added, right? A prospective, let's even call it guaranteed, future rate of return that exceeds your cost of capital, so positive EVA, is necessary but insufficient to warrant a particular investment decision. That is not the proper trade. The proper trade-off is between the net rate of return on the proposed opportunity versus the next best one. And it so happens that we live in time. And so there's this thing called the future where there's going to be some other opportunities. And so we have this unfortunate position of judging between known probabilistic net rates of return versus unknown unknowns. And that's judgment. That's where we get to make the judgment call. And you can't claim to make wise decisions in that context without reference to the underlying value of liquidity, right? What are my decisions today going to mean in the context of my capacity to take advantage of other opportunities in the future? If I've got to be uber leveraged now to go do something special that's proposed to me now, what does that mean for what could come my way later? Right? And the more expert you become in whatever you do, if you want to put it in economic terms, the more specialized you become, the further into the division of labor you go, the higher your opportunity cost. Right? And so the more skilled you are, the more wise somebody is, the better of a judgment, of a decision maker, the better an entrepreneur in the economic context somebody is, the more often the answer should be no. And so just like in my talk, I talked about patterns of behavior, just know that if you're going around saying, ooh, jumping at everything that looks like an opportunity, you are embodying the pattern of behavior of the average consumer. That is not the pattern of behavior of somebody very well capitalized and very well off. It's just not. So just know that that's the context. Okay. And if a great, wonderful
I love these economic lessons. Preach on, brother.
Well,
Sorry for the interruption.
And it's not like you should never take a loan, right? I'm not saying never take a pause and there's never an opportunity. I'm talking about the nature of the decision, right? If you've got to be talked into or persuaded, or there's a clever presentation, or you got to be convinced, that those are indications of the type of circumstance those are indications of the nature of the context you're in, right? Because what that is definitely not is a situation where you just can't believe how nobody else has found what you found, right? Or someone's beating your door down, begging to pay you money to go take advantage. There are far superior circumstances where legitimate mutual benefit occurs, right? Both individuals to the transaction, or all individuals to the transaction gain, and the people who want to do business with you, they're just chomping at the bit, right? And these circumstances do happen. They exist typically on the other side of a giant barrier to entry in the form of capital requirement, where the opportunity is so obvious. It seems, again, opportunity doesn't exist. It's an implicit judgment. So if it seems so obvious to you that, oh my gosh, you can't do it fast enough, that character of so-called opportunity is very different from, I gotta have my arm twisted. I gotta see the number. I'm gonna sit back in judgment and see the numbers and, convince me to take this deal, right? Those are two different scenarios. And the question is real simple. Which one do you want? Right? Which one do you want to act in?
Look, I love that. Talking, the different scenarios, the judgment, the nature of the decision, and then the comparison and the differences between somebody that's well capitalized and somebody who's not well capitalized. Okay? We're all human. Every decision that we make, in my humble opinion, when it comes to the financial world, is, let me say, the bad decisions. I'll rephrase that. When you lose money, when you make bad decisions and it costs you, the decision was typically made out of two fundamental, from two premises, from two different fundamental positions. One, in my humble opinion, is out of balance emotion. If I'm afraid, fear is an emotion. If I have fear of missing out, right? If I have this FOMO, and it causes me to take action. That fundamental characteristic, that emotion, is out of balance. Now, maybe I have a big ego. Maybe my buddies are doing all kinds of investments in real estate or gas and oil or whatever they're doing. And my ego's so sensitive that I've got to be like them. Don't leave me. I'm as smart as you. Right? That's an out of balance emotion, right? And then there's always, and I know I'm breaking it down to the very fundamental, but the idea of knowledge, it's like you say it all the time. Well, how would I know what you should do? Right? So, and everybody tells you, well, do your homework, do your due diligence. Okay, where's this knowledge that you're seeking and acquiring? Where's it coming from? Is it based on somebody else's misunderstandings or their pseudo knowledge or their experience that they're conveying to you? And then, is there a connection whenever Nelson said maybe you should, invest in or put your money to things that you know something about? What? He's very directly saying you should put your capital, you should invest in things that you know, right? And what are things that you know about? I don't know, maybe you have some hobbies, maybe you have timber as a hobby, which was what he did. Maybe, you enjoy helping your family buy cars and you have developed a skill of dealing with automobile dealers, maybe you're a horse trader. I don't know. Maybe you like heavy equipment and you've discovered that like this is something that you enjoy and now your knowledge about heavy equipment goes up. Maybe whatever it is, maybe it's coins, maybe it's crypto. I don't care what it is, but you have an interest in there to the point that you're increasing your knowledge in that endeavor. All right. So we can all make a decision based on misinformation, fake knowledge, represented knowledge, is not true, accurate, factual knowledge. And so the nature of the decision, the judgment that you make beyond this number is bigger than that number, the qualified plan, I'm going to get a tax deduction today to, become a millionaire later. That's manipulative when you step back and see that you're not avoiding the taxes. You're postponing the taxes into a future unknown. Oh, wait, and all of the future is unknown. Into a future unknown bracket. So I'm telling you, it's very emotional. And two, when it comes to money, especially when it comes to your money, the emotions can run high. Just go ask your spouse. Okay. So out of balance emotions if you make decisions considering, your emotions being in balance and out of balance, the proper balance of your emotions when you make a decision, it'll go a long way to avoid mistakes. And then, maybe I don't have knowledge in a particular area, but beyond just like and trust you, you've heard that in the financial world, people to do business with you in any industry, not only do you have to have a good product or a good service, but they kind of have to like and trust you or they're not going to return. Right? So maybe I lack some knowledge in a particular area, but I have interest there. And then, I can connect with and communicate with some real people at my level, friends, acquaintances, family, not some financial guru online, not the local financial advisor down the road. Yes, they're likable. They're great people. Of course they are. They wouldn't be in business, I don't care if they fish, golf, hunt, or what, it's like, so my point here is if I lack knowledge, maybe I should go to spend some time with people that are knowledgeable in this area that I have interest in that is beyond this superficial level of I like and trust you because you're clean and you speak in big words and clear language and you can, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Right. So until that happens, until I can make that happen or it accidentally occurs and all of nature makes it happen for me, whatever, if I can just focus on capital accumulation. Yep. What is wrong with that? Nothing. But James, it's not flashy. Look, and I talked about it, I'm just saying that look at a rate of return, chasing this and chasing that. Man, if you just understand properly structured dividend paying whole life insurance issued by a mutual company, and it's very broad when I say properly structured. And, kind of going back to earlier to meeting the client where they're at, I think every one of us are, of course, in different places. We're all unique and individuals, no question. So where I'm at is not where you're at. Where you're at is not where I'm at. It's not where you're at. And so when I say meet people where they're at, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is meeting them at their level of understanding and comfort, right? Not talking down to them, beating them up with facts or numbers or anything. Meeting them where they're at. Maybe at the original meeting of the minds, we determined that, look, your philosophy is so much different than mine that I couldn't serve you very well, and you'd be better served elsewhere. Perfect. That was a meeting worth having, right? So I've met them where they're at. And then, and many people, mainly agents, a lot of agents and advisors I talk to all the time, we can't necessarily work together per se, but if they ask and sometimes even if they don't ask, I would share with them what I would do if I were them in their circumstances, and so it's a win-win-win, right? If you look at the rates of return, all of these things that you're chasing and being encouraged to do, it is okay whenever you say the best answer may often be no. often for me, the older I get and the more I understand, it's a hard hell no most of the time. Okay. Not only is it no, thank you, no, it's a hard hell no. And then if I'm want to entertain myself, I'll even ask whomever's presenting the opportunity would be why.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The eagerness to take a policy loan as soon as possible to go do something, it just betrays a lack of understanding of the nature of cash value growth. Right? It's an indication that the financial system is leaking like a sieve. You can't give up control of that capital fast enough.
You're operating and I don't know. I don't know what to. I don't know.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? What do I got to go here. I'm missing here. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But there's a solid knowing in watching your capital accumulate.
And if your capital really, like if it really was very valuable and important to you to have a lot of money that you could get to, wouldn't it be expensive? Like, wouldn't the offer from somebody who, and it's always people, right? We don't invest in things. It's always people. Someone's making a decision on the other side of that cash flow. Wouldn't the proposal and the nature of that proposal have to be just pristine? It wouldn't have to be extraordinarily compelling to me to justify forfeiting control over some of my capital if I really valued it. Right? If it really was important to me to build up a pool of financial value. If that was valuable, well, then it would be expensive. And if it's expensive, then the justification to give up some control, even for a time, it better be wildly convinced to me, right? To me, because to get me out of bed, listen, I like what I do. I like my economic work. I like the type of approach I take to education, the online courses, the writing. I enjoy this stuff and I enjoy working with clients and I know where that money's going when it comes in, and to interrupt that, to allow some outside factor or entity or something to cross that boundary, to violate the sanctity of that wonderful capitalization strategy, man, it's got to be real compelling. And so for example, I know everybody wants examples. Okay. The book, How to Buy Whole Life, the book I'm working on. Oh my gosh. I could fill a book on its own with all the mistakes I've made going through there, but it's something I'm interested in. It's something I know something about. It's a learning process. I have decided that it's a worthy, call it an investment. I don't even think in those terms. It's like, rather than what thing should I invest in, it's better for me to consider who I want to become. Right? That to me is a more attractive way of thinking about things. And passing notes to me. Oh. But all right, well, I'll end there. That's a long meditation on opportunity and
It's really
we were almost not going to podcast today.
Yeah, I mean that really goes to proper classification of your own capital.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. So, okay. Thanks for listening. I had a great time. It went like twice as long as I expected. So maybe we'll bust it up into 4 pieces.
Oh, boy.
Thanks.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and click on that little notification bell. Otherwise, join us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher for weekly content.